Your seat is for my bag.
Your seat is for my bag.
Evelyn Harrington said, her voice flat and unbothered as she patted the designer purse resting on seat 2. Like it was the only passenger that mattered. Minutes before takeoff, she told the plainly dressed single father to step aside because a bag deserved that seat more than he did. The flight attendant, the cabin manager, and even the captain confirmed his ticket was valid, yet they still pressed him to move. The whole cabin expected him to obey. Then he made one quiet call, and the entire flight was canceled. Who was he really? The gate area at Phoenix Sky Harbor was thinning out when Ryan Walker finally sat down, a worn leather bag between his boots and a paper cup of coffee going cold in his hand. He had spent 2 days in meetings that left his shoulders stiff and his mind somewhere else, and all he wanted now was the 90 minutes to Dallas and the quiet of a window seat. He wore a gray shirt with the sleeves pushed up, jeans and shoes that had seen more airports than most people saw in a lifetime, and nothing about him asked to be noticed. When the agent called the first-class boarding group, he stood without hurry, checked the phone in his pocket out of habit, and walked toward the jet bridge like a man who had done this 1,000 times and expected nothing from it. Before he stepped through the door, he lifted the phone again and sent a short message to the woman who watched his household when work pulled him away. He told her he would land by 6, that dinner was in the refrigerator, and that he would call the moment the wheels touched the ground. It was the kind of thing he did without thinking now, a rhythm built over years of doing the raising alone, and the reply came back quick and warm before he slid the phone away. He had learned to keep that part of his life folded quietly out of sight, private and unspoken, and no stranger in that cabin would have guessed the weight he carried home with him. The first-class cabin smelled of cold air and fresh coffee, and a flight attendant in a crisp navy uniform greeted him near the galley with a practiced smile. Her name tag read, Grace Sullivan, and there was something careful in her eyes, the look of a person who had learned to read the temperature of a room in the first 3 seconds. She glanced at his boarding pass, nodded him toward the front, and told him seat 2A was on the left just past the divider. He thanked her by name, which surprised her a little, and moved down the narrow aisle with his bag held close to keep from brushing the seats. That was when he saw the purse. It sat squarely in the seat that belonged to him, a pale leather thing with gold hardware that probably cost more than his first car arranged with a care that suggested it had earned the spot. In the seat beside it, 2B, a woman in her early 60s, sat with the unbothered stillness of someone who had never in her life been asked to wait. Her silver hair was pulled back without a strand out of place. Her rings caught the cabin light, and she did not look up when he stopped beside her. Ryan checked the small placard above the seat, confirmed the letter and the number, and then spoke in the even unhurried tone that was simply how he spoke. "Excuse me," he said, keeping his voice low so it stayed between them. "I think you've got your bag on my seat. This one's 2A. He gestured lightly, not reaching for the purse, giving her the room to fix it herself. The woman finally turned her head and studied him, the way a person studies a smudge on a clean window, taking in the gray shirt, the jeans, the tired eyes, and arriving at a conclusion she had clearly reached many times before about many people. Whatever she saw, it did not move her an inch, and the small smile that crossed her mouth held no warmth at all. "That seat," Evelyn Harrington said, patting the purse once as if to reassure it, "is for my bag." She said it the way another person might state the time flat and final, and then she looked back toward the window as though the conversation had already ended. Ryan gave her the benefit of the doubt he gave most strangers, then tried again, still polite and still quiet, explaining that he had a valid ticket for that exact seat and would appreciate her moving the purse so he could sit. She let out a small breath through her nose, the sound of a woman inconvenienced by a fly, and did not touch the bag. "There are other seats," Evelyn told him without looking over her tone, smoothing into something almost bored. "I'm sure a man like you can find one that suits him better, This one is occupied. Her hand rested on the pale leather again, protective and possessive, and a passenger across the aisle glanced up from his magazine to watch. Ryan felt the old familiar pull to simply let it go, to fold himself smaller, and take whatever seat kept the peace, because that was easier, and he was tired, and a long night waited at the other end. Yet he stayed where he was, calm and unmoved, because the seat was his, and something in her voice had made the whole thing bigger than a seat. Grace Sullivan arrived a moment later, drawn by the stillness that had settled around row 2, and she looked between the two of them with the wariness of someone who could already feel the afternoon tilting. Ryan handed her his boarding pass without a word, and she read it, read the seat number, and glanced at the purse occupying 2A. For an instant, something flickered across her face, a small acknowledgement that the man in the gray shirt was by every rule she was trained to follow, entirely in the right. She confirmed it aloud, gently telling Evelyn that the gentleman's ticket was indeed for 2A, and asking in the softest voice she owned whether the bag might go in the overhead bin. "I paid for comfort," Evelyn answered, turning that flat gaze on the attendant now, "and I expect it. My bag stays where it is." She let the words land, then added that she flew this route often, that she knew people at the airline, and that she had no intention of having her belongings crammed above her head like a common carry-on. Grace's smile stayed fixed, but her eyes changed, and Ryan watched the calculation happen in real time. Watched the young woman weigh a valid ticket against a wealthy passenger who knew how to make a complaint travel upward. It was not a fair fight, and everyone standing in that aisle knew it. Grace excused herself and returned within a minute, with a man whose name tag read Tyler Brooks, the cabin service manager, a taller figure with the smooth, managed calm of someone whose entire job was to make problems disappear before they reached a review. He listened to Grace's low summary, glanced at the boarding pass she handed him, and then turned to Ryan with the warm, regretful expression of a man about to ask for a favor he had no right to ask. He acknowledged carefully that the seat did belong to Ryan. Then in the same breath, he suggested that perhaps the simplest thing, the kindest thing for everyone hoping to leave on time, would be for Ryan to take a different seat in the cabin. "We've got a lovely spot up front. 2D, Tyler said, already gesturing toward it as though the matter were settled. Same cabin, same service, no difference at all. It would just keep things smooth for the whole flight." He delivered it like a gift, and the message underneath was unmistakable because it was the man with